This issue explains the difference between Audi's first and second generation magnetic shift pedals. This is the first generation. This is the second generation. Let's start with the carbon sheet. Our first generation used 3mm carbon plates. Then our second generation uses 5mm carbon plates. It is thickened. The overall quality and thickness will be stronger. Another is the surface treatment. Our first generation did not use varnish to cover it. The second generation is covered with a layer of varnish. It will make the texture of carbon fiber and the surface protection better. Another thing is structural changes. We can see that these surfaces are very rough. This one is 3D printed. These are relatively brittle. The second generation is machined directly. The whole thing is metal. Then some changes in the structure. What we can see, one of the structures here is uneven. This side is flat. Then our whole body and a magnet on the back. Whether it is structural parts or carbon sheets, the whole is black. The overall coordination of this kind of external magnet will be a little worse. Now we have built it in, so you can see the magnet now. Another thing is that this external magnet is fixed with glue, so there is a possibility that it will fall off in the summer. Our second generation has the magnet built in and locked with screws, so it won't fall off. Another thing is aesthetics. Because this position is empty, we can see the circuit board inside. So some customers also gave feedback saying the overall texture and grade will be slightly lower. Then we have some changes in the chip. Our first generation used just an ordinary domestically produced circuit board. The second generation uses imported Amran circuit boards. Including these wires have been upgraded. Some flame retardant materials are used. Let's try the feel again. The sound of the second generation is relatively crisper than that of the first generation. The rebound will be better. Let's look at the comparison details. We can see these screw holes of the carbon sheet. Let's look at these details. Again, you can see that there are some exposed holes. Here, we can see in the second generation that it is a completely flat surface after the screws are tightened. The connection is very tight. In the second generation, we also introduced the glossy carbon fiber option. Now the second generation has two options, glossy and matte. Now put it on the steering wheel and see the difference. We have it installed now. Let's take a look at the overall effect and difference. You see this is the first generation. Our entire steering wheel, including the base, is all black. We can always see that the exposed magnet is quite abrupt. Let's take a look at this built-in. You can refer to the overall effect. In addition, we can see the details in the structure. These second generation structures all are made according to the original arc shape. So we can see the overall fit. It fits the steering wheel perfectly. Let's look at the first generation. We can take a closer look. If there is a pursuit of customers, you can see that the sealing of the first generation is worse than that of the second generation. We can see these gaps inside. Because the structure is all for cost, a detail we made, it will still be different from the second generation. After we take it down, these edges and corners of the first generation, it uses 3D printed parts. So basically, if you disassemble it after installation, because 3D printed parts are relatively brittle, there is a high probability that they will break after being disassembled. Then let's try it. You can see we took it back. After taking it apart, it's already broken here, missing. It is a 3D printed part that we can see. This is the difference between the first and second generations. So the pursuit of perfection, it is recommended to choose the second generation.